tonight. So, and welcome Commissioner Denny up to the big stage. So, all right, to begin, we'd like to go through our opening ceremony. So our pledge will be led by Commissioner Severing. Oh boy. Turn it off, turn it back on. Yeah, all right. Commissioner Severing will lead us through our pledge, and Commissioner Denny will lead us through our reverence. So.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this day that we have to be gathered today as a city and as a community to discuss the future of Hooper and what it looks like for us here. We're so grateful for the opportunity that we have and for the people that attend these meetings to be able to contribute to the city and the world around them. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to discuss these topics tonight. We ask you to bless us, to lead us and guide us to make decisions that will be beneficial. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to our, there are no consent items this evening, so we will move into the action items. First action item is a rezone request for Mr. Bridger Smith, located at 5271 West, 4600 South. The rezone is to create a half-acre lot with a previous existing home on it. Staff, you want to take us through, Malcolm?
Yeah, we've just, as you've stated, received request. This is the existing home here right on 4600 South. The current land use is R1. The future land use map is R75. This just references our code that the rezone process allows for the planning construction made to amend the future land use portion of the general plan as part of the rezone process. After a rezone, this property will need to be subdivided. I just wanted to make that clear. It's a little, we have an existing home that hasn't gone through a subdivision process, but to carve it off of this, we'll subdivide it. But prior to that, we wanted to ensure we had the proper zoning. And so if you have any questions, let me know. I believe the applicant's probably here as well. So.
Perfect. Is the applicant here? Okay. Any questions for the applicant that's not here? Let's go into a discussion. Any discussion about it?
I think like we talked in the work meeting, where the future land use is R75, I'd be more comfortable approving this if he'd go 3/4 acre instead of his half acre.
Perfect. Okay. At this time, we're going to enter a public hearing, or I'll entertain a motion to enter a public hearing to receive public input on the request.
That motion to enter public hearing?
I'll second.
All right. Motion was made by Commissioner Waite and seconded by Commissioner Severing. If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak on this topic, please come up front. You have 3 minutes. Morgan will be our timekeeper. Please state your name and if you're a resident of Hooper City, please.
Real quick, sorry. Do we need a vote on that to go into public hearing? Does it matter?
Yeah, you should have.
Okay. Hey, you're doing great, Travis. You're
Thanks,
doing
man.
great.
Man. We're going to have to do this again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Hey, thanks for your patience.
Sure. Amy Christofferson. I'm live in Hooper on 5900 South. I did send an email to y'all today. Sorry you heard from me so much, but just wanted to formally log my strong opposition to the proposed rezone request for the property located at 5271 West, 4600 South, which seeks to create a half-acre lot to separate an existing home from the surrounding agricultural land. This application contains a fundamental flaw regarding legal ownership and transparency, and it represents a dangerous precedent for the future of Hooper's general plan. I urge the Planning Commission and the City Council to deny the request based on the following critical points. Failure to meet valid application and ownership requirements. Hooper City Code requires that a rezone application be submitted by the legal property owner or an officially authorized representative of the owner. Public records indicate that the applicant, Bridger Smith, is not the legal owner of this property. Instead, the property is owned by Utah State House speaker, Mike Schultz. Because this true owner did not submit this application, there is no transparent documentation establishing Bridger Smith as the legally authorized agent. The application fails to meet basic procedural requirements and should be rejected immediately. Number two, a lack of political transparency and public accountability. The choice to hide the true ownership of this land behind another individual's name appears to be a deliberate attempt to Representative Schultz to avoid public scrutiny. This evasion is especially concerning given the current negative community attention surrounding State Senate President Stuart Adams and his own controversial attempts to alter the city's general plan. High-ranking state politicians should not be permitted to use frontmen to bypass the public transparency that everyday Hooper citizens are subjected to. The city must not show undue deference to career politicians using their influence for personal or financial benefit. Incremental development schemes and protection of 1 acre zoning. While this application claims only to separate a pre-existing home from agricultural land, the broader implications are clear. Carving out a half-acre lot sets a zoning precedent on this parcel. If approved, it creates a justification to bypass Hooper's traditional 1 acre minimums when Representative Schultz inevitably moves to develop the remaining 13.45 acres of agricultural land. Granting this rezone is the first step in a piecemeal erosion of our community's rural character. Hooper City must uphold its ordinances equally, regardless of an applicant's political stature or state-level power. Because this application violates filing requirements, lacks proper transparency, and threatens the integrity of our agricultural zoning, I respectfully request the Planning Commission and City Council deny this rezone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So motioned?
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Denny, seconded by Commissioner Waite. We can open this back up for conversation.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Talk about what we talked in the work meeting as far as the ownership. We had questions on the ownership portion as well. I mean, we know it's Mike's son-in-law, but he should be the one requesting it. And then his son-in-law can come in and present it. We've allowed that before, you know what I mean? But it wasn't, I guess it wasn't brought forth as, hey, Mike Schultz wants to subdivide it, or not subdivide, but he wants to rezone this, and his son-in-law's acting in his behalf.
Yeah, we confirm with you that we could, if we were to make a motion to approve, we could make a condition that they would essentially reapply with either Mike applying or
Yeah,
Authorizing.
authorizing Mr. Smith to
he can.
apply for it on his behalf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing we talked about is, like Malcolm mentioned, the future land use map for this area is 0.75. And so in our work meeting, we kind of discussed that maybe that's the better option. So, and if we don't also make a motion to approve, we could make also a condition that it would go to 0.75 in place of that, or would they need to agree and reapply?
Yeah, probably the preferred way is if you wanted to go 0.75 is to table it tonight, and Mr. Jenkins could reach out to the applicant and have the applicant either resubmit an application or modified application with those two things, or appear next time and speak to what he wants to do with it.
Okay. And if we were to table it, would we have another public hearing, or this is sufficient?
This is be sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
The two items, to be clear, are acknowledgement from the landowner, as we have on the other ones, for the authorization to, represent as a rezone. And then the final piece you mentioned was just acknowledgement that he would be open or verbally come and talk about any variation in the zoning 3/4 versus half.
Yeah, I think if he could submit that he was open to half acre lot or a 3/4 acre lot, he could do that through writing to you, as he should probably have the landowner authorization to speak first, and then that item. or he could come and speak to it himself.
Yeah, I come out all on the same page with everything. I think we need to have the ownership established or the right to represent, or needs to be closer to 3/4.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we table it with those two items, the one, the ownership. And then I think we tell them that we're looking more for 0.75 instead of going to half acre.
Second?
Second.
Motion is made to table with conditions by Commissioner Waite, seconded by Commissioner Denny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving.
I forgot one thing. I don't know if we can go back. I want to make sure also that it's just the house area. It's not the area for the whole 13.95, whatever. It's just where the house is. So they need to clarify in a better legal description of where the rezone actually is. So Tony, make another motion, or can we include that?
Yeah, I think you would make a motion to reconsider the prior motion
Okay.
with that addition.
I'll make a motion to reconsider the prior motion with that condition, that including the more, a better legal description for just the area, not the whole 13.95.
Second?
I'll second.
All right.
Sorry.
Motion to reconsider was made by Commissioner Waite, seconded by Commissioner Severing. All in favor?
Aye. Sorry, I forgot about that one.
That's okay.
I had a note.
Would you like to make a new motion?
No, I'm good now. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to item B, and we'll get the order correct on this one. So this is a rezone request for Tana Gooch located at 3051 South, 5100 West. The rezone request is to go from an R1 to an R2 at the stated parcels. Is a representative for this here? Would you like to come up and speak to it? Please state your name and if you're a resident of Hooper.
Tana Gooch, been here 62 years. So I'm requesting to have it rezoned from the 1 acre to half acres. I made application in February 5th of 2020. I wrote a check, they cashed it. I wanted to rezone it, and I was told that because Cammie rezoned next to me and we bordered, and she put in a great big pump house for like 250 houses, that I would be able to get half acres. I made application, nothing ever came of it. I put in another request on April 26th of 2021, asked where we were. It was kind of tabled and nothing happened. So I'm bringing it up again. I have no intention of ever selling or ever subdividing. I've been there my whole life, but you never know what's going to happen and what's going to come through, and I want to be prepared. That's all I got. Oh, do you have questions for me?
When did you write your check and when was the first application?
I checked February 5th, 2020 for $471.90, and it was cashed. And then on April 26, 2021, I put in a follow-up letter asking where we were, and nothing, I think COVID hit, something happened.
Any other questions? Ms. Gooch? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Malcolm, do you have you want to do a presentation or anything? Sorry, you're probably gonna go there.
It's perfect.
Just add some context. Here's the proposed property, just for the benefit of anyone watching. 2 parcels. It is located, this is all developed now as our Rawson Ranch subdivision. There's 4 different phases in there. Current zone R1, future R1, similar as before. The rezone would require an amendment to the future land use portion of the map, since we would be differing. And that'd be everything.
Go back to that map. So you're saying south of the bottom star, all that's subdivided where the wedding chapel thing is?
No, just right here, I think. They're right here, and then,
Just
oh
right-
no, sorry,
right.
here's
Okay.
Rawson, no, sorry, excuse me, just right here, Rawson Ranch Phase 2, where it hits. So these are all hers, these 2 parcels.
Okay.
Did you take more money was there a new application or is this just the same application from 2020?
We didn't request for an application fee due to the,
So you knew, okay, that's not news then. Do you guys know why it
Do we
got
have-
held up?
Yeah, do we have any information from 21? What happened?
Interesting.
yeah, I looked into it, but I honestly don't recall what we found, but either way, we just tried to expedite it now and we didn't charge for an application, tried to get it up here for discussion.
Okay,
I know the meeting it was supposed to be on, there was a cancellation for COVID. That was part of, that's not something happened with that. There was the meeting got canceled that it was scheduled on, and then I don't know why it never got put on. I don't know.
When was Ross and Ranch? When did they come through for rezone? You didn't recall?
Twenty 2019 rings a bell. I could find out for sure.
you want to wait for that? No. Okay, at this time, we'd like to enter a public hearing. If we would entertain a motion.
So motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, a motion to enter a public hearing was made by Commissioner Denny, seconded by Commissioner Waite. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, there we go. All right. If anybody from the public would like to make a comment about this particular item, again, you have 3 minutes. Please come up, state your name, and if you're a resident of Hooper City, please.
Amanda Prince, Hooper resident. I just kind of had a question on this one, and maybe I'm not remembering how the process works, but for this and the previous applicant, it's my understanding you would still need to make an amendment to the general plan to the future land use map, because that's not currently what we have in the zoning. And so I'm just wondering if they actually submitted an application to open the general plan and why it wasn't noticed that way on the agenda that went out like it was on item C for the Terra Strata property. Thanks.
Would you like me to answer that question?
Absolutely.
So different cities handle that differently, and like I'm fairly new here at Hooper, but a general plan is a general plan. So anytime there's a rezone that isn't in line with the general plan, that's a reason that the city could use to deny that. But it's a general plan. So emphasis on the word general. If an application comes forward that the city likes that is not in line with the general plan doesn't prohibit the city from rezoning it. Some cities will, every time you get a rezone, they will then amend their general plan so that it's in line with the rezone, but that's not required by state law because state law kind of contemplates that a general plan will be a very policy level, high level guiding document. So that's one reason why it wasn't noticed that way.
Any other public comment? Okay, at this time, take a motion to bring it back.
Motion to end the public comment.
Second? Perfect. Motion was made by Commissioner Denny, seconded by Commissioner Severing. Any more conversation around this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any more comment about this?
So I know in our work session, we kind of talked about how the city is in discussions with looking at the general plan, right? Opening it, we kind of talked about the time frame. And where the current, maybe you didn't mention this, what's the current land use
R1,
map? And then what's the future?
R1.
R1. And there's this weird agricultural protection overlay or whatever. So I think in our discussions, we kind of mentioned maybe we wait until we are opening the general plan as a whole and look at this area in specific and other areas. If it lines better with half acre or 3/4, whatever it is. That was something we talked about. I don't know You have any other comments regarding that?
We talked about that, and then we talked about the benefit to the city versus the non-benefit, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing that probably trips me up a little bit is the benefit. You know, if you're going to make a sacrifice for density, usually there's something that is considered. Rawson Ranch gave us a regional or a lift station to help provide future development. So that's where I'm probably hung up is how does this help the community overall, and how does this benefit kind of the direction that we're trying to push up Hooper?
Also in the work meeting, one of the discussion topics we made was if this does get denied and there is a change to the general plan, the applicant can reapply. They don't have to wait that 12-month period. So that was also a part of that discussion. So. Any more discussion? Okay, entertain a motion.
I didn't realize that they had made an application in 2020, so I wish we'd have gotten answered long time ago for them. So I do feel bad about that, but I still kind of feel the same as if, I think I'll make the motion to deny the application and wait for the general plan update that will be happening soon, where we can look at this in other areas a little more in detail.
Motion is made by Commissioner Waite. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second was made by Commissioner Denny. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to topic C. Action item C, this is a rezone request and general plan amendment at approximately 4700 West, 5500 South for Terra Strata. The proposed request is from R1 zoning to C2, PUD, R2, and R3 zone. Malcolm, do you want to just give it for the folks that may have showed up late or showed up on time for the actual meeting, give them just a quick overview of what's being requested?
Sure. Here's the property. I have 5 different parcels that are, well, yeah, 5, technically 6 right here. This little sliver is being requested for a rezone. It's at 5500 South and 4700 West. It's for a commercial development with residential on the back. We can pull up a plan at some point if there's any further discussion, but maybe just to emphasize, the current zone is R1. The future land use map is C1 on 5500 as opposed to C2 and R75 in the rear. I think a clarification just to maybe help understand the process. The prior requests were not in line with the future land use, but the zones were in use and they were part of the general plan. So the amendment wasn't taking place. It was the rezone covers the future land use amendment strictly or clearly in our rezone process. If you're rezoning and it requires you apply for a rezone, and if that does require an amendment to the future land use map, it can be done as part of the rezone. The difference here is the zones being requested are explicit in our general plan, either not in use. So for instance, or they call out, for instance, right here, 10-2F2, no additional property may be rezoned in the city using this unless the general plan is amended. And additional areas of the community are designated to this land use. So that's what we would be doing. We'd be placing here in the general plan under page 25, we'd be placing PUD, let's see, sorry. Oh, we put the base zone residential PUDs and community C2 zone in use. So those zones that are currently not in use in our general plan and haven't been contemplated for further use would now be being we'd amend the general plan to contemplate those. The zones exist, but we need to amend the general plan. So that's the difference in these applications. And if you want to see a project, you want to just maybe pull up the project.
Please.
Yeah, it's slow. So it's a commercial development on the front with the primary anchor, retail pad surrounding it, with a gas station here, a residential component in the back, PUD here with a mixture of townhomes, clustered cottages and cottages, some private drives within there, and then R3 buffer around the perimeter of the subdivision. Total of 115 units plus 28 additional units if this section is rezoned as residential as opposed to commercial. So I should give a high level explanation of what we're working on.
That was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative from Terra Strata, want to come up and speak on your project? Please and thank you. State your name and resident of Hooper.
Troy Wolverton, and what was the second part? Address?
Are you a resident of Hooper?
I am not a resident of Hooper. I wish
Thanks,
I
Troy.
was. Great city. Malcolm, would you be kind enough to go back to the zoning map? I think that's an older rendition than our more recent updated application, in that it just doesn't show the residential home in the corner also being rezoned. I just wanted to make sure the record was clear on what the request was. I think there's been enough discussion about the reason for the general plan and the most important general plan amendment. And I think the most important part is that your code requires it for this use and zoning that's being requested. We've talked about other reasons for that in the past. And as Malcolm's already stated, that's probably the most important reason. The next one is the rezone and asking for a little bit of a change in density. Typically in commercial centers, there is a more dense zoning that is established around a commercial center to transition back to the remainder of the community. And oftentimes commercial zones are used as a transition buffer. In this case, that's what's being requested. If with the rezone being discussed extensively, as well as the general plan amendment, what I might try to do if I could is just focus on the master development agreement that's proposed and be able to speak to a couple of items. Page 1 lists several recitals, which are eventually brought into the agreement by a statement, but these recitals need to be updated as different. We desire this to be, or the recommendations that are come out of tonight, maybe some of the areas changed that are represented here. Just wanted to be clear that those will all be updated based on the record and how it's reported this evening. And if there's time to get that in the council packet, we'll gladly do that. Turning a couple of pages, the descriptions that have already been provided about the reasoning behind the general plan amendment on page 3 are referenced there and then highlighted in what's been provided in your packet. The requested zoning with the R3, the patio homes, as well as the PUD for the townhome portion is referenced there. With all the discussion, there has been a lot of concern about following the current code within the city. In the first portion here on page 4, section 2.4, where it lists commercial uses, when we said the uses that are in that table are fine with us, they provide all the uses that we desire. There was some concern expressed by some of the uses being auto, truck, recreational vehicles. It's a permitted use in the zone, but didn't want that to be in this development. And this was a request of the city, so it's incorporated here. Only having one gas station in the shopping center, not more than one. That's the language that's been provided there. A concern has been expressed about screening, and that would be screening the commercial from the residential. There are two types of fencing provided in the development agreement. Just to be clear, the current code of the city doesn't specify a height of the screening that's offered to be 6 feet here. And that could be a masonry screen wall. Typically, it's a concrete masonry unit wall, or a decorative fence, which is typically a precast post and panel wall. Those that are familiar with the Kaysville Shopping Center, at the back of the Kaysville Shopping Center is a 6-foot post and panel wall, to give you an example of what one might look like. The next section, 2.6, talks about the landscape buffer that would be adjacent to that 6-foot screen wall. A 10-foot landscape buffer consisting of trees, pedestrian connections, and other plantings are proposed. The lighting is the next section, 2.6.5. It is proposed, or has been discussed, it's not written in here, but can be easily added, that the height of the fixture in the parking areas of the commercial will be 25 feet high. The building, the grocer anchor building, the lowest portion of that building is 26 feet. And the idea was the building would provide some screening. There will be wall pack lights on the building itself. Those are at a 15-foot height, and can be, we'll provide a full photometric plan once it's determined and again established what the height of that should be. But I think through the discussions and so forth, there seems to be some interest in holding to the 25. As we move into the R3 zoning, there is one request which is different from the code, and that is to have the frontages be 85 feet. That is still capable of providing a more modern home, having a 3-car garage. And so the code only requires a 2-car garage, but there's still interest in providing that on some of these wider lots. The current code requires 100 foot of frontage, and so that is a deviation that's being requested. We looked at open space, which I think the rest of these items can be summed up in. The code requires 40% open space. We learned tonight as a clarification that roads can be deducted out of that. My calculation showing 10% and some of the front yards that were calculated and yards area, I had the streets in there. We also looked at some zoning. I don't know if you're able to show that picture, but we tried to look at some of the open space in the commercial areas, plantings along the roadways and so forth, not the internal plantings. And that was in the range of about 10% as well. We need to recalculate that open space number because the setbacks are a little bit greater, shown here if we stay with the code of the 35-foot setback to the front of the home for the R3 and some of the other setbacks that are listed here. If you go to the appendix where it lists and you don't have to jump there, Malcolm, I just want them to know, the appendix shows a design standard that has shorter setbacks than the current code. But if the interest is to get a higher open space number for the development to be closer to the code, we need to honor the setbacks that are currently in the code. So I just wanted to clarify that willingness. We talked a little bit earlier on the cottage lots, how the common driveways will have 10 feet of each of those lots taken up by a driveway as well as a connecting sidewalk. That would be 10 feet as well. We're just asking that the 6,500 square feet that's shown in here be reduced to the 6,250 to be able to accommodate that loss of area. There's been some discussion about the request on the townhomes to have 6 plexes. The code currently shows 4, and so that's a request that's being made. We hope to receive at least a recommendation on that being forwarded to the city council. The other interest was to not have a residential monument entry sign that is required by the code and be able to have that be put towards some amenities within the residential area or some amenities within the open space that's proposed rather than having that monument feature as required. So that's another deviation that's being requested. The rest of the items, again, pretty much follow what's in the code and don't really bear much additional discussion. There was some concern about phasing that has been expressed in the project, and really that was an attempt to appease some concerns about oh, you'll just build the residential and get that density in there and then you won't build the commercial. There is a market that drives these projects. And currently, the West Weaver corridor is what's really driving the value for the commercial. And there may be some delay in the construction of the commercial associated with the construction of that roadway. They would like the timing to be consistent. You'll notice in the signage request that there's a tall sign requested on 5500. That's in an interest of being able to have some visibility to the shopping center from the roadway that is planned within 5 to 1500 feet to the west of this location. UDOT was a little bit vague in our pre-application meeting with them. Material changes are outlined, and I think the remaining comment that there was a lot of concern expressed about was what was originally mentioned as the city's participation in the construction of the lift station and other improvements. That has been removed from the agreement, and language has been provided by the city to say that if the city is going to participate, say, in the lift station, that will be done by a separate agreement and not part of the master development agreement, and that any impact that this shopping center may have on that lift station would be proportionally borne by the shopping center, and just wanted to be able to cover that additional language that's provided there as well. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. Really just wanted to focus on the development agreement portion, as there's been a lot of discussion on zoning and general plan.
Okay, just I want to get one piece of clarification from Nick. So something we talked about in the work meeting, we have the rezone request and general plan amendment first, and then the recommendation of the master development agreement, and we want to have public hearings on both of those items, correct?
That's correct.
So do we probably don't want to ask a lot of questions about the developer agreement right now and stick with the rezone? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously very interconnected. So I think just the citizenry should have the opportunity to speak, to give their opinion on both items.
Sure.
Some might have strong feelings on one and the other, so. But I think it's somewhat of a distinction without a difference. And I think you could ask whatever questions you wanted, whenever you wanted.
Okay.
I apologize for not being familiar with the formalities of Hooper City. It is often the case where the public hearing is held. I take notes as to what the questions are, and then I'm invited back up to respond to those questions. If that's a format that you're okay with, I just wanted you to know I'd be willing to do that.
I appreciate that. And obviously I'm not familiar with it either. I've had a couple scrubs tonight, so that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. All right. So at this time, we will move into or entertain a motion to enter into a public hearing to receive input on the rezone the rezone request and the general plan amendment.
I'll make a motion to enter into a public hearing for the rezone request and general plan amendment for Terra Strata LLC.
Second?
Second.
Perfect. Motion was made by Commissioner Waite, seconded by Commissioner Severing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. At this time, we'd invite anybody from the public that would like to speak on this. Again, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes that will be timed by Miss Morgan over here. Please state your name and if you are a resident of Hooper City.
Amanda Prince, Hooper City resident. I know many of you are aware of my views and concerns about this project. 3 minutes is not a lot of time, so I'll briefly summarize some main points. I want to begin by clarifying that I am not opposed to some commercial development in Hooper. I'm asking the Planning Commission and City Council to consider whether we are getting the right development for Hooper and whether we need to give away things that we don't need to give away in order to get it. I am strongly opposed to the high-density residential component of this proposal, particularly the townhomes and other high-density housing. There is one type of high-density residential development I would support, a senior living community consisting of one-level, single-family residences. This could provide a valuable housing option for aging Hooper residents who want to remain in the community they call home while putting them within a short drive or potentially even walking distance of a grocery store, restaurants, and other services. Our current code for patio zones allows for a senior living community. In fact, it says that one of the reasons it was created was to allow a developer to more closely tailor a development project to a specific user group such as retired persons. The townhomes and high-density housing proposed here are a very different type of development. We also need to remember what Hooper residents have already told us. During the previous general plan process, residents were given an opportunity to provide input about the future of our community. The majority of citizens who participated expressed that they did not want townhomes or high-density housing in Hooper. I understand that the city is preparing to reopen and substantially revise the general plan, and that a committee has already been formed for that purpose. That is exactly why I believe we should not make a major change to high-density residential zoning on this property before that process occurs and before the public has had an opportunity to participate. If the community's vision for Hooper is changing, then let's have that conversation openly and comprehensively through the general plan process, not make that decision one development at a time. I also have serious concerns about the city's participation in tax increment financing, CRAs, PIDs, or other forms of public financing for this development. The revised development agreement references several mechanisms that could involve public financing, tax increment, PID bonds, PID property tax revenues, fees, assessments, and other public revenues. I believe the developer should be responsible for the infrastructure connected to his development. If there are regional infrastructure improvements that benefit future development, let's look at fair, legally authorized reimbursement mechanisms, such as pioneering agreements, where future users pay their appropriate share of the infrastructure they benefit from. I do not believe Hooper City needs to participate in a CRA or PID to make this development happen. This is prime real estate. The new highway is coming. That dramatically increases the value and development potential of this property. We are not in a position where Hooper has to settle for whatever development is offered to us. We have an opportunity to be selective. We can ask for the commercial development we want, the infrastructure we need, and the development standards that protect the character of our community. And we need to think beyond this one project. Whatever we approve here will set a precedent for future developers who come to Hooper. If we establish that high-density housing exceptions to development standards or public financing are necessary
Thank you.
concessions. Is that it? Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I was trying.
Anyone else? Oh, ma'am, there you go. Please state your name and if you're a resident of Hooper.
My name is Tracy Woodward, and yes, I am a resident.
Thank you very much. Okay, ma'am, hang on. I need you to please come to the microphone so that we can record it and folks that are participating online can hear your comments as well.
Not a problem. Okay, in the bottom left-hand corner, it says multi-tenant, and there's 50 parking spaces, apartments. After the meeting 2 weeks ago, I spoke to the two gentlemen that are doing the development, and I was talking to them about it, and they said, can you go out? Okay, we're on this side, the flex that they could, and a proposal that they're looking at is making that commercial apartments. Okay, so you've got that. So after I spoke to them, I spoke to Sherry, and I love Sherry. I think the world of her. Okay, and I was talking to Sherry about it, and she said, oh, no. We want a community center, a pavilion, and an assisted living. At the last meeting, I said, let's be transparent. Show me what you're going to go. And Blake, you pulled up this map, not you personally, but you pulled up this map. And I thought, okay, no problem. Well, then after speaking to people after the meeting, I'm like, this is not the map. So all I'm asking as a city planner is let's find out exactly what is going there. Stuart Adams is doing this, right? He's a builder. He knows all the builders in the state of Utah by the first names. He knows what's going to go there. Let us know what's going to go there so that we can say, yeah, no problem, no problem. My house is going to be right back. And if they build apartments, we've got 5-story apartments in my backyard. I didn't move to Hooper for apartments. We keep saying not apartments, not apartments. That's going to be apartments. Thank you.
Malcolm, do you want to give a small piece of clarification on that? I know we normally don't respond back, but I think might be a small misconception there.
Zoning change will permit for allowed uses within that zone. This mixed use zone is defined in a development agreement, either is contemplating additional Hooper Crossing planned residential, which would be similar PUD and patio zone combination, which are in our zone, so density of 6 units maximum. As displayed here would be townhomes. There's discussion in our work meeting of potentially looking at commercial primarily. And if it's commercial, it would be included as part of our C2 zone. Our C2 zone is for commercial development with retail emphasis to provide amenities and things like that. So it would have some type of similar usage within our allowed usage in that zone, whether it's retail shopping or, types of services that are allowed in a C2 zone.
Does C2 zone allow for like commercial on the bottom and living above? So if that's the kind of clarification they're wanting.
No.
So there's not any, in the C2 zone, there's not any clarification for apartments options.
Let me double check, but not that I don't believe so.
Any other residents?
I'm a Hooper resident. Moved here to get out of the city.
Can I grab your name?
My name's Andrew,
Thank you.
and I moved to get out of the city. And I don't want to be lived around all the townhomes and the apartments and all the high traffic and drugs and stuff that I came from. And I'm raising my family here. And now we have a lot of traffic on my street and a lot of school kids around, a lot of schools around where I live. And I don't think the roadway can handle all this stuff you're going on here. And I don't like how the taxes are gonna be used for the sewer system you wanna put in. And, I just don't want all the high-rise buildings put in the backyard. Cause you can't look at the sunsets and all that, the mornings. Like my brother lives in Roy. His backyard is nothing but a sixplex. He looks up and he sees a sixplex. Can't see anything around him, all walls, It's terrible. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Holly Johnson and I'm a resident of Hooper. We also moved here for the purpose of getting out of the city. We have a horse property and this is not what we expected to be in. If we'd have wanted something like this, we'd have stayed where we were. And so to me, it's also going to bring down the value of our homes. If we decided to move, we're not going to get anything out of our houses compared for this. What's in the modified high density residential area? What's planning on being in the blue area?
So during these, we don't generally do a back and forth. So
Okay, well, I just don't know I can't understand what that modified high density residential is, but.
sure, we'll have Malcolm clarify that when you're done.
Okay, anyhow, this is not what we moved here for. And the idea of being able to ride our horses like we have done is not going to be possible anymore. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you. Malcolm, will you clarify that just real quick on the modified in the blue?
Yeah, it looks like the proposed modified high density residential. So the blue specifically consists of 23 lots. That'll be 13,000 square foot maximum. The Hooper Crossing planned residential will encompass our PUD zone and will consist of 92 lots. 92 lots that are there are 92 buildings, that consist of townhomes and patio homes, and they're calling them clustered cottages, and so you can kind of see better in other maps that we've looked at what types of structures those are. Those would be the types of product that you see within it. I think it's clear to, or probably important to point out, that the planning commission is aware, we would be locking in the number of units. The developer agreement does specify some flexibility potentially for the type of product to be used, be modified within the products that are displayed, but the number of units would be what we're approving. And just to be clear, these 28 units are part of this section of the development here. And this section of the development is being proposed as flex space. That flex space could be commercial, but if it were not commercial and it ended up being part of the planned residential, it would be 28 additional units beyond what we just said that are represented here.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
Amy Christopherson, Hooper resident. Again, I just want to formally register my continuing steadfast opposition to the proposed general plan amendment and rezone request, as well as the associated recommendation of the master development agreement for Hooper Crossing Commercial Center. However, I want to clearly state that my opposition and that of many of our fellow Hooper residents is not an opposition to growth itself. We recognize that Hooper City must find effective ways to expand, evolve, and meet the needs of the future while maintaining our unique heritage and culture. What we firmly reject are politician developers who exploit their position and influence to shift the immense financial burdens and infrastructure risks of private developments directly onto everyday citizens. While these developers reap maximum profits, Hooper residents are left holding the bill for the long-term debt and strains placed on our local utilities, roads, and public services. We do not want Hooper to become yet another cautionary tale. We have a stark, tragic example of this exact dynamic playing out in Eagle Mountain, Utah. Years of massive tax breaks and short-sighted developer incentives ultimately forced the city council to pass a staggering 183% property tax rate hike in August 2026 to make up for infrastructure and public safety strains. This crushed local homeowners and sparked a furious, desperate resident referendum to block the financial fallout. Hooper taxpayers deserve better than false promises that rapid, subsidized growth will magically generate municipal revenue. If honest, apolitical developers come to Hooper with the willingness to pay their own way, directly funding and contributing to the necessary infrastructure upfront, our community would gladly welcome them. Development should be a partnership that protects residents from future tax burdens and respects our city's long-term financial health. The solution to Hooper's growth is definitely not to be found in predatory development schemes or corporate tax setups associated with Terra Strata, Stuart Adams, and his associates. I urge you to stand up for your constituents, to protect our pocketbooks, and deny the rezone and master development agreement for the Hooper Crossing Commercial Center. And we also moved here for a way of life, and it is the last. You want to see how they've ruined Kaysville, and you want to see how they've ruined Eagle Mountain. Go drive around there for 10 minutes, drive on the roads and just see the crowd and all of that. We're here for the sunsets too. And Tana, I was gonna oppose your thing because my husband and I drive by your place and we covet it all the time. And we don't want to see those beautiful things go away. It's a gift to all of us. And there's got to be a way to do things. What Amanda Prince
Excellent,
said.
Amy. Thank
Sorry.
you. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but thank you very much. Any other citizen comment?
Suzanne Sterland, resident of Hooper. I've emailed you guys before and a lot of you emailed me back. So my opinion has been said a lot and it reflects what all these people have been saying, especially Amanda. So I'm not going to hit on everything just because a lot of people have said stuff. I'll just quickly say I'm against the AUP and the PID because I feel like it doesn't benefit our city and puts money onto us. I'm against the high density. If you just zoom out of that map and see what's around and what's just barely north, there is so many acre plus lots that are around. And we moved on to 4700, knowing that there would be commercial, so I'm not against the commercial, and knowing what the general plan was developed out. And it was very clear in the general plan that the citizens of Hooper were against high density housing. And that's what made me say, you know what, it would be cool to have a grocery store. And I'm glad that they don't want the high density housing. And so it will affect us residents, and we've moved here for a reason. And I actually lived in Hooper for a long time in my life, but we literally decided to stay here and be close to this, to what the general plan was. And so to open the general plan just for a developer who is coming in and asking for it, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I also want to focus on the sewer as well. I feel like we really need to figure something out with the sewer in Hooper. I know, for instance, the Quail Meadows neighborhood has backed up many, many times in this summer. We've had a resident that's backed up 3 times. And I am very, very worried because I'm on septic right now and I feel great with what I have, and I don't want my really, really nice house to be backed up with sewer. And when we're seeing the Quail Meadows is brand new, that shouldn't be happening. And so it worries me that it's been stated before, and I don't know if it's the truth, that it was said in a meeting that we would be forced to hook into sewer. So please also know, if Stuart Adams is not willing to pay for sewer, then why do the residents have to pay for, because we're gonna have to shoulder a lot of costs, the people who aren't on sewer. And so realize that, like, I feel like the developer has plenty of money, and it's gonna be on the shoulders of Hooper City. So realize that, and I would like to see him pay some of the costs too. Not my personal costs, but what they're doing. I don't think he should be off scotch-free, and I also don't want the sewer to back on us. So please look into that issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
Tony Zuick, resident of Hooper. This has been going on for a long time, and the first site plan plot map they brought us showed a bigger store and the development and everything. We shot it down because they didn't meet our criteria. We put some guidelines towards them to redesign their plan and come back to meet zoning and other laws of Hooper. And this time, under a new, I guess, plan, they came back and shrunk the store, added more houses, and I don't think it's right. If Smith wants to build, let Smith build on the corner. Let them foot the bill. Hooper can't afford to foot the bill. We'll be the next one that sees a humongous property tax because our infrastructure can't handle this. Thanks.
Thank you. Other citizen comments? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to bring it back.
I'll motion to close public comment.
Second. I'll second.
All right, motion to close public comment was made by Commissioner Denny, seconded by Commissioner Severing. All in favor?
Aye.
Before we, we'll bring Troy back up in just a second. So, we will still have another public hearing later to talk more about the developer agreement, right? So I know that's a little messy, but I want to make sure everybody that wants to talk about this gets to talk about this. So, Troy, do you want to come back up and talk about a couple of those items before we start a big conversation? If there's anything you would not necessarily a rebuttal, but if there was anything in there that you want to address.
Yeah, and much of I think the big angst items were really related to the MDA, so I'll just wait on those. There was some concerns about high density, patio zones preferred. Just wanted to speak to that one. We're looking for direction And this is the process. And so if the planning commission feels, and there have been some who have said, we don't have enough patio homes. So in the interest of that, I drew what a patio home would look like and patterned it after some other some patio homes that were referenced. We didn't take the time to go through the whole thing because again, if the zone wasn't going to be changed to patio homes, it wasn't worth taking the time and the expense to do that. But if the planning commission would like to forward a recommendation for the patio homes and the senior housing, that kind of a thing to the city council, we'd be willing to entertain that. I think the interest is to move this forward to the city council. Wanted to clarify the multi-tenant reference. Many of you, I'm sure, have been to a shopping center where you see that oftentimes a building, many times referred to as a shell, is divided up into multiple tenants. And that's what that multi-tenant space is. It's a strip space, not an apartment building, will not function as an apartment building, would not be residential. It's a commercial use in that location. Just wanted to clarify that one. I think there was some confusion by the word reference to multi-tenant. That would be a multi-tenant commercial building and nothing related to apartments or high rise. There are no what would be referred to as apartments in this development proposed. And I think that was clarified. I just wanted to restate it. Moving down a little bit, in the R3 zone, the blue that was around the outside, just a clarification, it can be easily done. It was said that it was 13,000 maximum square foot on the lot. It's a minimum square footage on the lot. Just wanted to clarify that for the folks in attendance. And again, the others were density, participation in the lift station, those kind of things. I think the rest of those were associated with the MDA. Thanks.
Any questions for Troy before he gets comfortable?
Yeah, Troy. So on those multi-tenants, just to clarify, we talked a lot in our work session about the commercial, the anchor and the height and size of the anchor. Do you have handy? I'm sure it's in my packet, but there's a lot in there, so I haven't gotten through it all. What's the height of those multi-tenants size? Is there any kind of clarifications on those in there?
They're in the same range. The current commercial, the C2 zone within the city has a 50-foot maximum height. None of the buildings proposed are 50 feet tall. I would dare say, I don't want to overcommit, but less than 45, I'm certain of. Some buildings have a little bit of a pop-up portion over the main entry, things like that, so I don't want to overcommit. But the majority of the buildings wouldn't be more than 30 feet. If you looked at just the flat planes of the roof, if there's some pop-ups to create some architectural featuring, that might be a little different. I think we looked at the Smith's building, or excuse me, I should say, grocer anchor. They have not closed on the property. There really isn't anything in writing that says they're coming. They do have some interest in the property. Zoning would be a critical part in that. But anyway, just to clarify, yeah, and the heights here shown do not exceed that height in the zone. So hopefully there wouldn't be any blockage of, for those who live on the west side, sunrises, and for those who live on the east side, sunsets.
Then with the proposed housing that's in there, and Malcolm, you might know this one as well. Any of the proposed housing, whether it be the cottages or the single family or the townhomes, none of those would exceed height of current limits, correct? That we have in the city?
Correct. We're not asking for any deviations. I believe that the height there is 35, isn't it, Malcolm? Help me.
Height for what?
For the
Residential?
maximum height in the zone.
I don't know.
I have it on another piece of paper. I can speak to that during the MDA. I'll be glad to look it up.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think we have a maximum residential height, to be frank, so.
There is something in there.
Yeah, there's something.
There is a max in there. I don't know off the top of my head, but one of us could find it.
Yeah.
I'd like to remember.
I'll
what
be
that
glad
is.
to look it up and speak to it. at the
Thank you.
next one.
Can you pull that page back up, Malcolm, that had the heights on it? My eyes aren't good enough to even, if someone could narrate that to me or help me out here. $22.10, and if I remember correctly, the grocery anchor was 28 at the base level, and the peaks were 35 or something like that, similar to our.
think one thing we should probably talk about, Malcolm, sorry, make you go back and forth. This is fun. Can you go back to the zoning page? So one thing we kind of talked about is the mixed use area. So the kind of light green shade is the way it's written in the development agreement is kind of an open book. They can do a lot of things, and it's kind of what they want, which is it makes sense what they're asking for because you kind of want the market to drive. But I think in our work session we had talked about more of maybe let's have it clarified and say no, it's either this or that. And I think we were kind of leaning to maybe more commercial, which is kind of what I'm maybe picking up from residents is they don't necessarily want more density. They're okay with commercial as long as it's kind of done in a good way, I think, as opposed to a ton of density housing. One thing that I mentioned is if that it ends up being commercial, so along that whole west side, it would be commercial next to those existing homes. I would want to see some type of an even bigger buffer than what is written in the development agreement. As far as, set it back a ways, maybe have some trees, a pathway, a nice fence buffering the homes to the commercial, not an alleyway, but just something like that, as opposed to just giving them kind of a blank check for the mixed use.
Is that buffer zone, is that an MDA discussion or is that a zoning request question?
Maybe a little bit of both.
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
which one
I
would
think
apply.
that's more of a development agreement. I think, yes.
I'll speak to the mixed use as well. I was able to speak to, I think, 4 different, one mayor and 3 city council members of cities in the area in Davis and Weber County. And 3 of the 4 of them were pretty against mixed use because of the open book nature of it and how it could potentially not allow the city the flexibility to control their future, which is, I think, something that we don't want to give away. The one city that was a proponent of mixed use, I think, is a different layout setup compared to us. It was, I'll be frank, it was Layton City. I think that Layton City is obviously quite a bit different than Hooper City, and I don't think we want Hooper to turn into Layton. So I probably am also leaning towards more of a commercial element in there. And if the market isn't driving that and they want to come back later and try to readjust, then that's their prerogative to try to do that at a later date. But I like the ability to have more control of what our future looks like instead of having an open book that allows them the flexibility. I would rather retain the flexibility with ourselves.
Also in our work meeting, one of the things that I brought up that I'm not comfortable creating new zoning areas when I think that a project like this could fit in our current zoning areas. There would be some modification, obviously, when we were talking about specifically our code right now allows for a certain amount of units mixed together, which I think, Malcolm, you stated was 4 and instead of like 6. So
In our PUD zone, the permits for 4 attached units as a maximum in a PUD zone.
And something else we discussed about that, and this is probably for everybody's benefit, is the PUD zone was created, but we've never used it in Hooper ever. So it's never been applied to anything. So this would be, if that were to go through, this would be the first development to use that existing zone. What are you guys' thoughts around that piece, adding different zoning
Well,
versus
I think in reality, when this first started, the north section of that light blue was half-acre lots. It sounds like over the course of 2 years, we've kind of caved to 1/3-acre lots. I don't think we need to give away our frontage requirement of 100 feet down to 85. I'm not comfortable with the high density being 6+. I think 4 is max. If we're gonna fit this into Hooper City and what Hooper City wants, I'm all for the commercial, but I think we need to be the way it's written now, I can't get behind the current zoning request of 13,000 square feet, 85-foot frontage instead of our 100, or the cottage lots of 6,500, you know what I mean? There's just no, I think this could, let's be honest, he's gonna sell the residential portion of this to somebody else. And he's more worried about the commercial, so let's bring in the commercial, but keep our current zoning, if you will, on the residential. That's just my thought.
So you're saying like R1 or?
No,
or let 'em
I'm
go to-
okay with going the R3 on the north and the west. I'd give them that much. But I just have a lot of heartache with the 6-plex or the 6-unit. I think we could get by with 4. Yeah, that's gonna take some houses away, but I've always heard on developers when they do these big projects, it's like, okay, so how many doors do you need to fill to make this break even? You know, and it's usually 65-70%. Well, this is a ton more. I think we can scale back the residential and not sell away the residential. I don't agree with the little bit of open space and trying to incorporate the landscaping and the frontage of the commercial and different things like that. I think we're selling ourselves short if we give up some open space.
So when we talk about the open space piece, currently in our code for the PUD area, it would be 40% open. What's the right number to consider, do you think?
40%.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's my opinion, but
Okay.
I'm only one.
And that includes landscaping and everything in that 40%, according
mean-
to how the code is written, right, Malcolm?
40% includes what?
The landscaping areas, the pathways, all that is included in open space consideration to 40%.
front yards, backyards, like, I guess that's where I would like to clarify the 40% because it's quite a bit. But if I mean, is it only, does it 40% have to be just one big park, or yeah, is it every single front yard?
All the code
It's
states
included
that
that.
it excludes roadways and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And housing and the house itself structures. So I assume it includes everything. We've only ever applied 40% open space to one development and be our 55+ community.
Yeah.
I would have to, we'd have to grab our engineer and have him look it over, but I doubt that Country View has 40% open space without yards included in that ratio. They have a pickleball court and a playground in the corner, but I don't think they hit 40% without including their front and rear yards in that ratio. But I can't be sure of that. We'd have to be sure, but I like where you guys are going. I think that the reality is we need to peg it and that you can define it. We have a DA available to us. You could peg and define it for this instance. 40% is what the code recommends, and that's up for a little bit of interpretation, but that's how I interpret it. And I think that's how it was applied in the past, was that it excluded roads, structures, but I think it included grass, home landscaping. So
I think there was also something in that MDA that talked about wanting to take out the impervious surface down from our 65% to, was it like 30?
they're taking impervious surface from 65% to 70%.
Oh, they're increasing so 5% more concrete and asphalt.
No, I think you're right. Let me double check that.
While he's looking at that piece, one thing that we brought up in the work meeting as well, and that I was concerned with is that would be, if we set the standards for a percentage of open space, what would prevent them after the homes are built and homeowners are in there from fencing off their individual properties? And that was addressed that the HOA and CCRs would prevent that. So it would always be open space and not fenced between the properties. Obviously behind the properties and stuff like that, they could fence, but not in between any of the individual properties.
one of the things I want to mention is, so I agree that we should probably just try to use the existing zones that we have in our general plan and in our ordinance right now. So I like the idea of just do the commercial C2 up front, and then do the PUD. Malcolm, after you answered the question you're about to answer, could you remind everyone or let everyone know what the density is for our PUD, what the max density is for PUD?
Yeah, so the way this MDA reads is he states, and we would have to pull our code, but I'm confident as well. It says there's a 65% maximum impervious surface. The maximum impervious surface being recommended here shall not exceed 70%. So it would increase the amount of surface that can be impervious by 5%. The maximum or the highest level of density permitted in a PUD zone is 6 units to the acre, and that zone specifically that we've never put forth.
So 6 units to the acre, and then what did we say that they were? If there was to follow this map, what would be the density for the Hooper Crossing planned resident, the yellow space, whatever?
4.2.
4.2.
No, 4.56.
Yeah.
Per acre is what
the whole residential. I guess.
That's without including the 28
Yeah.
units that
that's all of the top half essentially. So the code can go for more, 6 units to the acre. As what he's calling now, it's less than that. But obviously that could change if we were to say, no, you need to get closer to the 40% open space, because right now we're saying it's only about 11, maybe more with taking out roads. So that number could even go down more.
One thing with the zoning, Nick or Troy, feel free to clarify, but as I read through the development agreement, the MDA, and look through the development agreement, it does feel complicated. But I think the developer's attempt here was to create categories as they're listed there on that zoning map that house zones that we have. So when you zone it, you could zone it to our zones that are underlining in that, with the MDA would then support the modifications to the zones. So I understand that there's a Hooper Crossing planned residential, or that's a PUD zone with modifications in the MDA, right? It's implementing that, or the modified high density residential, that's an R3 zone with an 85-foot frontage, right? So you could still rezone to the zones with the MDA supporting them, because the MDA is modifying the zones to accommodate him. So, or the commercial's a C2 with any of the modifications in the MDA that are affecting our C2 zone. So that's how I understand it.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of how I read it as well.
So I just, because I am a simple creature, I want to make this 100% clear that we are discussing first a rezone request and general plan amendment. If that goes through, at that point, we would be doing a recommendation on the MDA, correct?
Yeah, I think what the developer would like is to have a decision tonight. We've tabled this, and I don't think there's any animosity on either side, but we've tabled this several times to consider it more. And I think my understanding, and I don't want to put words in the developer's mouth, but they've kind of explored this and they'd like to know generally what's going to happen. So if we approve or deny the rezone request, then I think we should take similar action, and it could be the different action. You could approve one, deny one, approve the other, whatever. But I don't think we want to table one of the items tonight. I think in speaking to the developer, they would prefer to have candidly both items denied, and I'll let him speak to that if you'd like, but that allows them the chance to evaluate what they want to do, and they could still take it to council with the recommendation of denial, or they could go back to the drawing board, but that's what I think they'd like to do.
Okay, because again, that developer agreement, it's big, and there's a lot of stuff in there that we haven't even discussed. So for us to just summarily approve, I mean, obviously we'd just be making recommendations, and then the council would have to look at that as well. But I'm not prepared to approve every single line item in that. is a lot of that. I don't want to say it's above my pay grade, but it's I know nothing about commercial lighting. I don't, I don't think it's fair to just thumbs up everything that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern. I think that that's one of the reasons that we have Malcolm on staff is to look at those things, and I think he can address those. And I mean, I'm happy to address those as well. But I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, then I think what the developer's asking for tonight is, if you're not comfortable, then recommend a denial. I think that would be preferable. I mean, I think the developer obviously wants it to be a recommendation of approval, but
Sure.
I think that's where they're at.
As we recommend or deny it, and we're allowed to put conditions on it, obviously.
Yeah.
Can one of those conditions be that, like, could we recommend a condition of having a joint city council planning commission work session that allows us to more deeply go into our concerns about the MDA or the zoning together as a larger group to then talk through some of the intricacies that we don't fully understand? Or is that not?
Yeah, I want to be clear on how I answer that because I don't want to mislead you. You can recommend whatever you'd like. I'm not trying to be flippant with that comment. You can recommend to the council whatever you'd like, and then it becomes the council's decision as the chief legislative body in the city. Now I'm not, the council is very receptive and they might very well want to do that, but I don't want to say, yeah, you can do that. And then everybody here thinks there's going to be a joint meeting and for sure we're going to do this. I want to be very clear. Of course, the council takes what your recommendations are very seriously and considers them very seriously, but they're not required to follow them.
So I think at least for this first portion around the rezone and the general plan amendment, I would feel comfortable make the motion to maybe give a recommendation of approval with the kind of changes we talked about as far as get rid of the mixed use, maybe just really come close to following what our existing ordinances say. I would feel comfortable doing that, and then send that portion to the city council, and then I kind of agreed with Travis here about the MDA. Maybe that'll be a different thing, but I feel comfortable making a recommendation of approval for the rezone and general plan amendment with kind of those things. Yeah.
Commissioner Waite, just so that,
Yeah.
I think I followed the conversation, but just so we have clear minutes and
Yeah.
clear direction. So I think the motion is it's a motion to
I don't know if it was a motion yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I was over. I said I'd be comfortable doing that. And I'll see what they say.
Putting his toes in the water.
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit of context just quickly? I wanted to wrap up the public comment. I believe we had one public comment that didn't get maybe fully addressed, and I didn't give a great answer. The allowed uses, you guys asked for that. I don't see any allowed uses contemplated related to that, but I just wanted to pull it up, put it out in front of you guys, let you kind of skim it.
This is for commercial, for C2, you're saying?
This is for allowed uses
Yeah.
in commercial base zone, C1 and C2. P is a permitted use, A is an accessory use, and C would be a conditional use. But anyway, you can kind of see the types of uses. You guys have seen this before. I don't want to take too much time. I did prior to the meeting, there are some in the MDA that are called out as not being permitted. I wanted to run just a few by the planning commission that additionally sparked a thought in my mind. If I don't want to unintentionally have a permitted use that you don't want in a C2 zone. So a couple of those that stuck out to me beyond what's listed, because they did, the developer also had some they don't want in there because, for their development, they said, we don't want these. But that being said, a couple in ours that are conditional and or permitted are a bar, brew, pub, or nightclub. And it'd be kind of a discussion for Nick if those can be added to the MDA. There are some added already is not allowed, but we have bar, brew, pub, or nightclub. Contractor's yard or shop is a conditional use. I don't feel that is overly applicable for this development. A crematory is a conditional use. Hotel or motel, not sure about that one. Kennel, commercial, I don't know. Off-street parking facility. We've had an inconsequential one of those in town that I don't think we would want here per se. Storage facility, self-service. I thought that one was important to identify as a use that we may want to prohibit in this zone as part of an MDA, and a tower or antenna structure. Those were some of the ones that stood out to me. as potential uses that might not fit in that area. As it relates to this development agreement, we might want to include those into the list that's already been provided.
But that would be after we decide how we're going to do with the zoning.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure the allowed uses of the zones, these
Sure.
are some of the things permitted in the zone to wrap up that residence inquiry of any apartments. But no, I don't see anything in here that promotes housing elements even, or especially not apartments. But again, we'd have to refer to the code and dive in, but it's a good thought.
But one point of clarification too, because several of the citizens have mentioned it, and then obviously we've heard through other means as well, is the discussion around the sewer. That's big. In the developer agreement, they changed the language in there now. So the original language was that it was going to pretty much fall on the city to secure financing, go there, but they've changed the language since in the developer agreement now that how does it read now?
We consulted with the city council had created an economic policy, right, as it relates to tax increment financing, and we consulted with those consultants, and they revised the language. You'd have to read through it specifically, and it is complex. I don't want to act like but the way I understand it and the way that, we've deferred to these consultants to help us is that it defers, it requires the developer to be responsible for their portion. It does explicitly contemplate system improvements versus development specific improvements. So those system improvements could be eligible for different financing mechanisms, as mentioned in a public comment. And one of those specifically is spelled out as a lift station, a regional lift station. But it says that will be done in a separate agreement as part of city council approvals, things like that.
Okay, so that's a completely separate issue at this point.
It would become a separate issue, yeah, and if in a later discussion, as long as that's how Nick understands it as well, and what has been provided from Cody Dieter and his partner, Rob Sam.
Yeah, just that's my understanding as well. That'd be contemplated in a separate agreement.
One of the other pieces that we had talked about too, and whether this would go into the developer agreement portion of the conversation or the rezone, was max number of houses in the development. So I know what's currently listed on that sheet, but if we want to recommend a maximum number, so that, because obviously that's not 100% set in stone, they're going to make some changes to it. Is that something that we'd probably want as a recommendation in the developer agreement?
Yes.
Not the zoning.
Not the zoning. Yeah, and the DA, I think, to be clear, the way this came to you guys might not have been totally fair, and it probably just came to be palatable. All these PDFs will be zipped into a DA at some point. It's just when it is summer landscape summer. So all these will be so that will be part of the NDA, right? So the number of units, you want to be explicitly clear that the number of units or whatever density is getting illustrated and the picture is appropriate. Because even if it's not explicitly called out in the development agreement, it is an exhibit that does spell out the number of units. So right now, as it stands, the number of units are what we've talked about.
But that could also change and probably go down a little bit based on our discussions about not changing some of the use codes, right? So if we stuck with our PUD code and didn't allow for a change to that, that would take any of those 6-unit pieces down to 4.
It would, and then it would be kind of back to the drawing table for the AWA team. And if they, if you had given them this number of units, they were able to squeeze them back in as it relates to then they might, if they couldn't, then they might have to, I don't know. So it's a good question. Good thought.
Okay, so I'm trying to build notes here. So the first thing we talked about, a possible motion, would be to eliminate the mixed use, follow our ordinances as they stand with the C2 PUD, R2 and R3 zones, respect the frontage that we currently have. Is that what you brought up, Blake?
That portion would be in the development agreement though, right? At least the frontage portion
Would be in the rezone?
would be in the development agreement.
Development. Okay, so we'll keep that out.
Yeah, if you wanted to reduce the number of units, I would probably try to be, I understand where your logic's going there, but you might want to be in the development agreement section, be explicitly clear, just we'd be comfortable with this number of units as opposed to hoping that the frontage that we give them will, just try and keep it in goodwill and just really explicit that this number of units we would be acceptable to. And then you could make that tied to the frontages that remain, but I'm not sure that the front, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. I don't know if the frontages, it seems it would reduce the number of units, but not sure.
Well, and I mean, this is a really big project for Hooper. I was looking this up to just kind of scale this. So Hooper City is about 26 square miles, which is about almost 17,000 acres in Hooper. We're talking about 30, right in that neighborhood. And I know it's dense overall. Yeah.
Overall, it's 50, ain't it? 49.
50,
something?
yeah, plus with the commercial. What else do we want to talk about with the ordinances? With the zoning?
Yeah, I think if we're going to stick to our zoning as currently permitted, then the green space is a big part of that too, or the open space.
Space.
Malcolm, the development here, the 55 and whatever it is and older, that's patio. That's zoned as patio, not PUD, correct?
Yeah, it's part of our patio home zone, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
What's the density for that?
it's also six
6.
units to the acre.
Okay.
It has an MHDR, a moderate housing income component to it where they actually could go denser.
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
don't know if that's even practical, but it
Yeah.
was there. But I believe it's 6 units to the acre, and I'm not sure what they yielded there. I wasn't around, but they're dense. Those patio homes they're very similar to these clustered cottages, not the ones on private strips, but they look similar.
That's what I ask you. And maybe if you don't know off the top of your head, but what's the main difference between the patio zone and the PUD zone?
It's a good question.
Okay.
They're quite similar in the standards and the zoning, the density. I think it's the intent of the what you're trying to attract.
Okay.
Right. The patio zone, I think, although they both kind of spell out, to be frank, they don't delineate well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to kind of scan through them both.
Okay.
Is there a potential that the patio zone limits heights at a greater, like, are they not as high potentially?
I don't believe so.
That's kind of one of the things that, like, if we're going to just debate between a patio home versus a townhouse, generally I would think that the height would be smaller. I mean, just maybe that's a misconception of mine, but I agree that some of my concerns are heights and taking away visibility from roadways, from current residents, from new residents. So that would be some of my concerns. And everyone's kind of heard me focus on heights quite a bit because I think that changes the landscape of an area great at a faster rate than even density might. Like, density is important also, but I think how the overall height layout can really contribute to like how a general development is pictured from the outside in and from the inside out.
Let's see if I can find patio homes, because I think that's a great question.
I can pull it up in the general plan here, and it might give the best delineation in a small amount. Here you go. Here's our general plan definitions. For a patio zone, as you can see, we have 10 acres of patio zone in use. I'm guessing that's country view, and a PUD zone. Here's what they define them as.
So it's in use, but according to that, it's not in our code anymore.
According to this.
Okay. You're looking at it.
It's the same 40% for open space. And I want to say they can be attached to up to 4.
I think if I
Patios
were
can
to,
be
I think
attached up to
you're, I think one of the major differences is, the product and the intention, and then
Yeah.
the end user patio homes. It does seem like you're probably trying to attract 55+ communities and or something of that nature, where the PUD zone was more for imaginative concept townhomes to a variety of product that might attract, other, maybe more younger families, et cetera. So.
So very similar in essence, but maybe like CCNR restrictions or other things in the development agreement might change depending on the zone because of who you're attracting. Yes.
So in our plan with patio zone, within reasonable exception, a minimum of 10 acres and a maximum of 20 acres is required with a patio zone, with a minimum of 40% of the acreage open space. So that's the same. Setbacks will be 25 feet and 30 feet on all collector or arterial streets. There should be an attached garage for parking. Same thing with road standards. So I don't think there's 10 acres in there to fit that for a patio zone.
Sounds like it doesn't matter anyway, because they're so similar.
Yeah.
It's just really about who you attract. So that's
I
not really.
I guess that was
deviation or
the
variation.
point I was trying to make is some comments and emails I got were saying, well, let's do patio, and maybe because it just attracts different people in their, I guess, lifestyle or whatever. But they're very similar as far as number of dwelling units, the type of homes, things like that.
So as far as zoning goes, I think I'm starting to come around to the same ideas as Tucker, where I think that we would feel comfortable recommending it with some conditions to keep things similarly to how Hooper's already been designed and laid out.
Blake, how you doing over there?
I know we talk about this and all these conditional uses, but I think they get lost in translation, and they get lost every time we put a bunch of conditions on something without having it. I'm having a hard time with the density personally. I mean, if you were to call for a vote right now, my vote would be no, so.
With our current
The way.
zoning
Well,
or-
the motion to approve this rezone and general plan amendment,
As currently outlined.
yeah, is currently submitted to us.
Yeah.
If we have to make a decision tonight, yay or nay, just like Nick said, I'm a no, but we call for a vote.
Does that change if we say it's R2 and R3 on the edges and patio or PUD in the middle? Or is it the same?
And that's a question for Nick too. Can we modify from what they've requested?
We can recommend.
Or
anything
do we
want.
have to vote strictly on what they've requested?
So, and I'll let Troy speak to this, but my understanding is that obviously he wants straight approval, right? But absent that, he's open to you not imposing, but recommending some conditions, and then he would evaluate those. So, with the one we discussed earlier with 0.75 versus a half acre lot for Mr. Smith, he wasn't here to speak to that, but I apologize, Mr. Wolverton. Mr. Wolverton has indicated that he is open to those conditions, and I think if you recommended something that he was not open to, he would make the city council aware of that, and they could decide whether they wanted to accept your conditions or not. So yeah, you can do that.
That's my problem. We can recommend all we want, but they can still do whatever they want, so.
But that's the same as if we deny it, they can still take it to city council, even if it's a unanimous denial.
Well,
And they can still do whatever they want. Ours
Yeah.
is just a recommendation based on our.
that's
research.
fine, but
Yeah.
I can sleep at night knowing that I'm voting my conscience, so however you want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's important whether we go for approval or not, just making this the public aware of how we think, and I think I respect your opinion. I think that's good, but so where do we go? Do we just make a motion and see what happens?
Well, I kind of want to flesh out what Blake's talking about too, because I'm in the same ballpark as Blake. That if we're voting to approve or deny based on what they've submitted, I'm leaning towards a deny as well. So I guess do we want to make the motion to modify and approve, or?
I mean, I guess
kind of it's written.
I guess our opinions are that all of us, I think, are opposed to the current submittal. So
Right.
we're all kind of denying that.
So I think we do that. I think we just deny it how it is, and the reason we're denying is because we don't want that much density. We don't like the mixed use. If we would have approved it if maybe made these changes.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So
Like,
I
we're
think
all kind of agreeing that.
So let's make the motion to deny it, and the reasoning, like explain. I guess we just explained why, but that's the reason why.
Someone's going to have to spell it out in their
Okay,
motion.
But I think you need to explain. You don't need to spell it out just for the notes.
No,
They just
so
know the
then-
reason why.
One clarification from Nick on that. Does that move us to the next phase? So if we deny this, we still want to talk about the developer agreement? Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You want to make a motion on both of them tonight. If you deny the rezone, it makes theoretically, you could talk about it as long as you want, but
Yeah.
it theoretically makes the next discussion very brief.
The question I have, I guess, so if we just deny it straight away and we don't, I mean, the reason I would deny it and the reason everyone this way is the density. So we'd look at that, the mixed use, open space is the other one. Would this information be carried to the city council, or is it just strictly they said no? Or would they say, no, it was no because of this and this and this? So hopefully they take into account the things we've said.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Jenkins would take the minutes from this meeting, and Mr. Wolverton would make a decision on whether he wanted to move to the council with the commission's recommendation. Sometimes developers do, sometimes they don't. But that gives him, the ball then falls in Mr. Wolverton's court. He can then say, look, please, city council, listen to the minutes. There was some, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but there was some value to this project. Please reconsider it. And then the council does whatever they want with it.
I apologize. The public hearing is closed. My opportunity to speak is done. I just wanted to make one clarification.
It's appreciated. This is important.
The motion or the consideration currently, general plan amendment and rezones to your current code. The MDA expresses deviations from that code. I just wanted to be clear on what you are currently voting on. It's a general plan amendment and a rezone request to R3, patio, and PUD. All your current codes. There's no deviation in that at all. Then when you consider the MDA, that's the deviations. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Blake? Does that make a little more sense to you?
I thought our PUDs was no longer in use.
No, it's the patio, but they're both.
It's not in use, but that's why you gotta amend the general plan.
Yeah, we haven't.
You would have to amend the
it
general
in there,
plan,
but
put
we've
it in
never
use
used it.
and say, yeah, we're on to
Reactivating it.
put it in play. Yeah. If you want to, yeah, this would be the case.
So I think what he's saying is that what we're voting on tonight is what we currently have available to us. So that's not reflective of what was on the map. That would come in conditions on the developer agreement.
Yeah, the zoning will stay with our standards. we're just allowing the rezone to happen. But the deviations from the standards are part of the agreement post zoning.
Somebody want to make a motion? More conversation?
Wish you wouldn't have got up and said that, because now it makes it harder. I think I feel like it's a tough situation because I feel like the commercial, I think, is a very good aspect of it. We have existing commercial. Does the commercial aspect not work without the additional density in the housing? Like, is that, obviously that's probably why they're asking for it. But do we also does Hooper need more housing that can be hopefully affordable and, families can come and enjoy this place how it is too?
I mean, I think that's an important element to the discussion is just our moderate income housing plan. I think that's what you're kind of referencing. I researched our current moderate income housing plan and kind of our goals that we've set to help with the state of Utah's compliance. And one of those goals was the ADU portion of it, which we've already amended some of those regulations to try to be compliant to allow for that. And the other one is to increase densities. And that's why some of our future land use maps have 0.75 acre allowances and the R2, the R3, and the R4 allowances. So I think that, yes, we do need more consideration for density in the future, especially to meet our moderate income housing plan that's required. But I think that we're on track with that with our current goals, with or without this subdivision. So this development, I don't think contributes to that moderate income housing plan. The way that I read it, I could be wrong. But the way that I read it, I think that we are compliant with our plan and our goals that we've set with or without this density. Hopefully that doesn't muddy the water even deeper. Because honestly, like that was one of my major concerns is that we want to try to get ahead of our moderate income housing plan before the state regulates us to do it. And that was one of the concerns that I had as I had discussions with many residents over the last 2 weeks and other city officials in other municipalities. And the way that I understand the law and the regulation from the state and the way that I understand our plan, I don't think that we're in any kind of jeopardy to have the state push the issue further. It's on the news right now in other municipalities in the state right now where the state's stepping in some areas and putting pressure on developers and city agreements. But I don't think that Hooper's in that situation yet, as currently outlined. I could be wrong.
No, I agree with you, but I also think we need to consider, are we looking at moderate income housing plan to check a box with the state, or do we really want to create moderate income housing? Because I think those are
agree.
separate discussions, right?
To 100%. Yeah, you're right.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion? Am I allowed to make the motion where I'm chairing?
I don't believe so. I think the chair does not vote and doesn't make motion.
I think
I was gonna say, if you were to make a motion, what would the motion be?
that's part of the discussion.
Honestly, my motion would be to approve, and then forward our requests for conditions because all of these codes are currently in our zoning. And then we can make the requests to move on from there. That's what I would motion. And then one more clarification. Nick, I'm so glad you're here tonight.
I'm happy to be here.
In the case of a tie, where does that go?
So,
4 of us vote,
but
2 up, 2 down.
my understanding, and I'd have to look at the bylaws, Mr. Jenkins might have those, but I don't think you as the chair vote.
Oh.
So, Mr. Jenkins, do you have the bylaws?
I'm looking for him.
That's typically how it works.
So any more discussion while we look at the bylaws before we take a motion and a vote?
I'm looking at the general plan right here. The goal, the very first one, foster a healthy community with opportunities to live, work, and recreate. So I don't know, that's kind of where I go, is maybe, yeah, let's get housing in here so other people can live and work and recreate. And hopefully along with this general plan and rezone and DA, we can get a good park system and trails and other things like that. Or we could deny it similar to we did with the other one and say, let's wait till we open up the general plan in a few months. I mean, we did it to the one that 351 South, 5100 West. It's kind of a, I don't know, similar. That I guess it's different because there's commercial aspect already in our future land use for this area. Maybe that's why it's different. And you mentioned the community benefit, I guess. But
Yeah, I agree. There is consideration there, but I think it's different because of already current and future land use maps that somewhat align and the benefit to the community.
Gentlemen,
Should we motion?
let's motion.
I will make a motion to approve the general plan amendment and the zoning request using our current zoning areas with the condition of the mixed use portion being eliminated and added to the commercial element of the rezone, while also considering that the zoning for the PUD and the MHDR have our considerations from our discussion regarding the density, 4-plex to 6-plex and open space area be modified to more closely match our current zoning. Did I hit them all?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Denny. Do I have a second?
so do we need to even add those conditions? Because really they're just asking for the C2, PUD, R2, and R3. They're not necessarily in this motion. It doesn't necessarily say this is where it's at.
I think it's a little bit of belt and suspenders, but there's nothing wrong with
Okay.
what's been added.
Okay. I'll second that.
Second has been made by Commissioner Waite. All in favor?
Hold up. Is there discussion on the motion? Sorry.
Oh, any discussion on the motion?
No. I just wanted to clarify. You want the open space, you want it to go, you just said more closely. Should we?
Well, I think that'll be in the development
That's gonna
agreement.
go more into the next discussion on developer agreement, I think, our list of stuff there.
And you said eliminate the mixed use,
Eliminate the mixed use and absorb
Make
it
it-
into the commercial.
the C2.
Yes, please.
But that's a tough one because really that map we were looking at isn't necessarily what it, I mean, that's what it could be, but
Not
this,
finding.
this recommendation isn't saying this is where it's going to be. It's just saying, let's open this up and look at the potential rezone to these items. So, right? Okay. And then in the development agreement, that's where you can really hash it out, the locations and things like that.
So
Okay.
can we confirm, I can't motion, but can I vote? Oh,
Vote.
yeah, I want a clarification on that before we vote. Because
I think even if you, maybe if you don't technically can't vote out, I guess you're saying this because you want to have your voice heard, right?
I'm up here with you guys.
So I would
Throw my
say,
law on the road too.
I would say even if your vote doesn't, you can't count your vote, you could say after like, hey, this is what I would have said. But maybe I'm wrong, but
Okay, so we've had a motion. All in favor?
aye.
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 Nay.
Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to move to item D, which is recommendation of a master development agreement for the Hooper Crossing Commercial. And we had discussed this in our work meeting as well. We appreciate everybody sticking around for this, and I would like to entertain a motion to enter a public hearing around item D, around the master development agreement. Anybody want to create a motion?
I'll make that motion. And really, I feel bad that people are, because I feel like this is the more important part of the whole rezone and general map plan amendment. So hopefully people stick around. So I feel like this is where we really get into, this is what we want as a city and a planning commission and a city council. Whereas before, this is more saying, let's have a look at it and see if it follows what our future land use want, what we want to have happen here. So I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Commissioner Waite. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Denny. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we'd like to open it up for public comment. Again, you have 3 minutes. Timekeeper is Morgan. Please step to the microphone, state your name, and if you're a resident of Hooper City, and share your thoughts.
Whatever we approve.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you state your name?
You've heard me, I know you know who I am, but Amanda Prince, Hooper resident. Whatever we approve here will set a precedent for future developers who come to Hooper. If we establish that high-density housing, exceptions to development standards, or public financing are necessary concessions to attract commercial development, future developers will reasonably expect the same treatment. So tonight I'm asking you to separate these issues. Support a commercial opportunity that's in the best interest of the city, but don't assume we have to accept the wrong type of high-density housing or public financing mechanisms to get it. Please protect Hooper taxpayers and our other taxing entities by not committing the city to CRAs, PIDs, or other tax increment financing for this project. We have an opportunity to do something meaningful here. Let's make sure we are developing Hooper on our terms, consistent with the vision of residents, that its residents have expressed, and the ordinances that were put in place after careful discretion by the City Council and Planning Commission, not simply accepting the terms of the developer wants because we are afraid we might lose the commercial development. I appreciate the transparency that you discussed in the work meeting about not understanding all of the things in the development agreement. My understanding is you received this revised copy of this agreement 2 to 3 days ago. I recognize that the developer doesn't want this agreement tabled. The project has been in place for some time, but the development agreement is new. I would encourage you to not be pushed into a decision that will have lasting consequences for our city. Mistakes happen when things are rushed. If you do decide to recommend an approval, please add conditions that will be in the best interest of Hooper. You can make recommendations to not participate in tax increment financing. You can recommend a pioneering agreement. You can recommend that the high density portion that you just pushed through is made for a retirement center for senior living. The people of Hooper deserve your careful scrutiny of this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comment?
Andrew, I just don't want Hooper City to take any more of my land for this project, which you're probably gonna take another 6 feet on my front yard, which will put my front door right on the street. You know, there's probably other citizens that are gonna experience the same land loss. And then we're gonna have to go into another tax problem because I'm losing land over that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments?
I would like to recommend, Suzanne Sterland, Hooper resident. I would like to recommend patio homes, but also throw a different idea out for patio homes. I have seen in some other cities, and we've actually lived in them early on as like a cheaper way to start a home and then moved on, right? It was a good starter home as a patio home. So you could consider patio homes. I do like the retirement part of it because I don't feel like we have a ton of that still. But if we are feeling like we also want to go for the newer families and help newer families or more affordable housing, I feel like patio homes fit better for what Hooper already the feel of Hooper already than a townhome. I also would like you to consider, and I'm not as good with what each, area can be maxed out on, but if you say, yes, we can do patio homes, what can the developer come in and then change it to? Can it end up being like different ideas than what we've said because we have said, oh yes, now it can be this zoning? Does that make sense? Because I am afraid that we go and we say, oh, well, we want it to be this, and we okay it, and then he goes in and maxes out whatever that use is, when we were thinking, oh, it's a patio home, but he can build a sixplex on it or whatever. So I would like you guys to look into the fact that, like, what is the max that they can do? Because in the end, they may say they're going to do one thing, but like it's already been stated, he probably will sell the land off and then somebody else is going to come in with their idea. So it probably won't be exactly what the vision is of what we've seen on the map so far. So that's just my extra thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other citizen comment?
Amy Christopherson, I'm just going to say that was really painful because I saw all four of you say that you would deny. It was like your instinct to deny that, and then it got approved. So, and everybody that stood up and made public comment asked you to deny, and you approved it anyway. So that's a little ridiculous.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Larry Ropolato, resident, and she's right. Everything's been against everything. So I will be that one person that stands up here and says, thanks for approving that. So we can work on that as a city and move forward. And I'm glad that you finally brought up affordable housing right there at the end of your discussion, because I think that's very important. I know it's been made comments that we moved in here and now everybody's building around. Well, I've been here for a long time and I've not once complained about people moving in, and all of, everybody that's moved out to Hooper, I've been fine with and that. And they're going to continue to move out here into Hooper, and we need to make places affordable for them. And go back to what Tucker read there about recreation and fun and that. And that's what this city's about. And I think since this COVID, it's messed up a lot of people, and it's changed things, and we need to get it back. And we need to work on this plan and do whatever we can to, work with these developers. And I get it that, yeah, there's other options, but nobody else has came to us in a year, 2, 3 years, whatever. I think it was 3 years ago that Terra Strata came first to Mayor Fowers. Nobody else has came. So let's see what you can do to work with this group that's here, and appreciate your help and your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments?
Tony Zuick, Hooper resident. I'm gonna call Larry out because he's all for this and affordable housing, but he was in a work meeting with Terra Estrada probably a month ago, and I think these small cottages came in at $450,000. How can that be affordable housing? This isn't affordable housing. This is affordable to bring this Smiths in because they're going to sell it off for as much as they can get. And we're going to be stuck with all the notes on this, and we're going to end up paying for it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to bring it back to the stand.
Motion to close.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Denny, seconded by Commissioner Severing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. So not to directly respond to citizen comment, but Tony's got a great point. And I mean, I know we like to throw around the term affordable housing, and I can't wrap my head around it either. You know, I remember my first home purchase and it was nowhere near that price. And I know what my supposed value on my home is now. So I hate that. I dislike the way we use the term affordable housing because there's not really much affordable about it. So we can call it moderate. We can call it, I don't even know what you want to call entry level housing anymore. Unless we look at small starter homes, but that's a whole different conversation that builders don't want to build right now. There's no money in it for them. So I think at this point, Nick, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. We're gonna kind of go through recommendations for the developer agreement, kind of our laundry list of things that we would like the city council to also consider. I don't know how messy the list will get and if it's something Morgan's going to straighten out, but I'm also taking notes as well and keeping kind of things around general ideas or requests, things around the commercial and things around the residential. So, I don't even know if we need to have a discussion about CRA or sewer because that is a completely separate issue, correct?
That's my understanding. Yes, that's correct.
That just gave us all 2 hours of our night back.
Well, I think it's still important that we could.
Yeah.
So I guess real quick. So we're either gonna, same thing as the rezone, either not deny, approve, table.
Uh-huh.
If we approve, we could have conditions.
Yeah.
If we deny, just deny.
Yeah, I think Mr. Wolverton would like to kind of know why you're denying it, obviously, but yeah,
Okay.
same thing as last time.
Okay.
as last time.
So I think in either way, if we end up giving a recommendation, I think it'd still be wise to mention stuff about funding and financing, just to make sure it's out of it. And even if it is out of it, I would still say it'd be good to say the taxpayers should not be paying for any of it. That's my opinion.
Well,
Anyway.
I'll start the conversation pretty simply. Like I'm not prepared to approve this because I don't understand everything that's in it. So even if we add conditions to it, I don't think I can put in a condition in there that, hey, I'm approving what I pretend to understand.
I would agree.
I agree with that. Yeah, in my opinion, I think I would recommend it. This isn't a vote yet, but I would say to deny it, and then I think we should probably say the reasons why. That's kind of where I'm at. So
Yeah.
If you could try and make the reasons why relate to the MDA
Correct.
best you can.
Yes, yeah.
Just to reiterate, the MDA, so we have zones that you guys have now, recommended an approval to these zones. PUD zone is fairly well written, I believe. It's never been used, as we just saw. And then additionally, our R3 zone is more robust. Our C2 zone is a little limited. So the whole purpose of the MDA was to provide requirements to facilitate the development, right? That maybe elaborated on our current C2 zone, for instance, so that we don't have just what's in code to protect us, that we had a document to rely on. Okay, these are what this is going to look like, right? For instance, elevation, architectural design of the buildings. We wanted to be able to make sure, if we're going to approve a C2, we don't want them to build whatever building they want. We want to be able to see what it looks like and feels like.
Sure.
So that's the idea.
Well, and that's fair, but I still want to make the point that there's a lot of stuff in there that talks about phasing of the projects. There's a lot of things talking about, timeframes. There's things in there that honestly are just above our understanding that I don't feel comfortable saying, hey, first one, like, we don't want the flex shoes. We were talking about R3 and north and west side, keeping the 40%. That's great that we can make all those recommendations. It's all the other stuff that's in there that I don't think any of us are, I'm not, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm not prepared to approve because I don't know it all or understand it. It's a big document, right? It's 85 pages of legalese that
I agree. I mean, I don't think that I don't think we understand it well enough to give it a full approval. Whether we can get to the point where we can approve it based on conditions or we deny it based on the discussion and they understand what's tripping us up. And I don't think we necessarily have to break down every element of the DA to make a decision one way or the other. We can approve or deny it. But what I'd like to have is some discussion on things that you saw in there that you like and things that you saw in there that you don't like. That way we can all kind of have a discussion together and decide, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly to be able to put our stamp on or our denial on. And then we give those stipulations to them based on what we have concerns or what we like.
So I took notes on a couple of things that we've discussed already, and I'll just tell you what I've got in here so we don't have to cover all that ground. As soon as I don't multitask well. So a couple of the items that we put in there, flex use denied, set that as a C2 area as a request. The buffer between that area and the homes on the west side, we want to make sure that if that is a C2 area, that there's still a very strategic and good buffer between the homes on the west side. We want to recommend a meeting with the council and commission to discuss this fully. Whether they choose to have us in on that discussion or not, that's up to them.
Yes.
Around the other things around the residential, we talked about the R3 on the north and west side in the PUD area, keeping open space at 40%, keep frontage at 100%.
100 feet.
Or 100, excuse me, 100 feet.
She's asking you to slow down just slightly.
Sorry.
She needs to play more typer sharp.
So if you guys are okay, I'll share a couple thoughts I've got specifically around the commercial piece of it. So I do have a little bit of experience with big box retail, right? So some things that I think we need to consider is noise and time consideration around, if this development goes through, are we going to allow 24-hour trucks? Are we going to allow idling? Are we going to allow dumpster use after certain times to keep quiet? Obviously there's a lighting discussion that's a little above my understanding. One of the things that Malcolm had discussed with some of us earlier was the landscaping. So, I know there's differences in different cities. If you go to Clinton, for example, and look at what they require for landscaping, it's pretty severe in a good way. It looks amazing and they require a lot of landscaping. So I think that's something that we need to discuss as well in the commercial piece of it. Exterior events and storage. When you think about big boxes, do we want to allow parking lot sales? Do we want to allow them to be able to put things in their parking lot year round or by permit only? So when you think about
Like a fireworks stand? Is
uh,
that what you're saying?
well, that's still through business licenses, but they can have their own end
Like
of season sales, things
ca-
like that.
case lot sales.
Yeah,
and-
things like that, if you want to allow that. So I think those are discussions around like parking lot uses. But
I would summarize that. I overheard you say as that we need an outdoor display plan. If you can just specify that, that's something he'll provide. Outdoor display plan.
okay. We also talked about the signage. What else?
Something about occupied owner, no renting
Oh, on the residential.
on the residential
Yeah,
side
we
of it.
would recommend title,
Owner occupancy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Deed restriction.
deed
restriction.
restriction.
that's one of the things that I had in there because they do mention some stuff up in there about no short-term rentals, 30 days or less, are restricted. And then the other one was investment owners could not own more than 2 units. And then the other piece was it was pretty vague on the final piece of it that stated something along the lines of not allowing or discouraging rental occupancy or something along those lines. But I would like to know, and maybe it's a Nick question, are we allowed to put some kind of a time frame on that discussion? Like, can we say it has to be owner occupied for X amount of years, or are there other legalities that block that restriction?
Yeah, those are interesting for a couple of reasons. One is sometimes run afoul of fair housing items there, but also it's just a matter of enforcement is really challenging for the city. If you want to give the council some direction, whether you approve or deny, like please beef this up to the extent you can. Mr. Curtis, Darren, and I are happy to look at that and work with Mr. Jenkins to get that as robust as we can, for sure.
Would the compliance piece of that fall on the city, or would it fall on the HOA, or would it, I mean, it's kind of our headache at the end of the day, whether the HOA handles it or not, but is that technically an HOA problem? And then we would have to step in if they weren't enforcing it, or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, you could require that. You could draft that in a number of ways. At the end of the day, if it's something the city cares about, it's something the city's going to have to monitor. I mean, you could certainly give a lot of that responsibility to the HOA, but that will depend on how much the HOA actually cares about it.
So, oh, good. I was just gonna, well, are you done on same topic or new topic? I was gonna bring up a new topic too. Definitely a piece of the agreement that I do not like is on page 19. It states third-party inspector. I don't love that idea. I would rather have our inspectors that we know and trust and have our best interest in mind. Not that we think that we're going to have problems with the developer, but because we know what we want and we know we've set standards in place and hired and trusted and trained someone to protect us.
Yeah,
And that person,
prior language in earlier versions had that as our public works director. So I had a similar question. I think we probably go back to that, and unless there's a different idea.
yeah, I don't mind that. I just don't like the current language that states the developer shall have the option at the developer's discretion to retain a third-party inspector. And kind of my thoughts on that is, you know, in my professional career, I've had some time being a third-party inspector for municipalities. And we always ran our business 100% honest and forthright, but at the end of the day, you still answer the person that's paying your bills. Like, you want to protect your integrity at all costs in everything that you do, but at the end of the day, you might phrase something in a way that protects the developer more than it protects the city, even if it's an honest statement, if that makes sense. So I don't like that at all. I would definitely deny the whole third-party inspection portion of it.
Tucker, you had something else too.
I think I forgot. No. I'm just looking at the allowed uses in our PUD code. One is, so there's dwelling, multifamily dwelling, single family attached, duplex, dwelling, single family attached twin home, and all those are permitted. So I wonder, Malcolm, can you define what a dwelling multifamily is? That wouldn't be an apartment, would it? That, I mean, well, I guess, yeah, I guess if we were to say stuff in there, I think the 4, if there is some type of 4-pack, 6-pack, I'd 4 be the max. But I almost want to kind of say, it's like, no, I think just go to try to figure out patio to make those work. I mean, we have them over here. I feel like they work great. So in my mind, I think in this development agreement, we would say you'd have to use that instead of, which is PUD, right?
Okay. I got the
Dwell-
definition of
dwelling-
multifamily.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go right ahead.
It's a structure containing 3 or 4 single-family dwelling units attached by common walls with a single structure with yard space on each side.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're talking about basically townhomes.
Yeah, similar to townhome. Okay. But I mean, I think if this does end up going through, I think people don't want that. People don't like the ideas of townhomes because they can be taller. Like the patio homes are more, they're smaller, they're flat. This development, I think, turned out really great. And in my mind, that's what would go really well there, along with some bigger lots, the R3 or R2.
R3.
Yeah. So I think if in the development agreement, if I would only approve if that was something in there, none, no townhome, no apartments, no nothing like that.
I've got a couple of requests too around kind of the phasing portion, because it's not as clear in there about how much of the commercial would need to be built out in relation to how much of the residential is built out. What we don't want is 100 and X amount of rooftops with no commercial. The commercial should be our priority. So I don't know.
They did amend that with this most recent release.
Okay.
The phasing says that the developer shall not be granted a certificate of occupancy for more than 30% of the residential property before 50% of the commercial property has received a certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
So there is an element of that, but the one thing that I fear with that element of it, and again, this is above our pay grade, we're reading into this document and we're not lawyers, but I feel like there's a little bit of a loophole in it that is in section 4.1.4 that says prior to the approval of the final subdivision plat, more than of building permits that would result in more than 70% of the total residential dwelling units with the project receiving building permits. If substantial vertical commercial construction is not commenced, the developer and the city shall meet with a good faith review. And it lists a bunch of conditions there that are basically saying like, well, they've tried really hard, but they haven't been able to do the commercial piece. So we're just going to let them do the residential anyway. And I don't love that it provides a loophole to then just say, well, we tried, it didn't work. The market's not allowing it. The corridor's not coming yet. We're just going to build houses in the back and the front's just going to be an empty field that's an eyesore for the next 10, 15, 20 years until the corridor makes its way here. Whether that's accelerated or decelerated, it's the state's decision, but I don't love that there's a loophole that kind of allows for that piece not to matter.
Okay.
That's a really good catch. That was unintentional as we've gone through that. So thank you.
I also get a general feeling in there that they don't want Hooper City inspections. They don't want regular check-ins on how the development's going. And I think that's important. I think the city needs to be very involved with that and talk about the commercial occupancy, like residential occupancy, you know, how far along they are in each project. And I think there needs to be regular check-ins on that and benchmarks that the city sets is reasonable. Obviously, they can't build out what doesn't sell, but
Yeah, one thing I think, I don't mean, I feel like we should try to use our existing code as much as we can. I know they changed it, want to change a few things, but I mean, I like the 100-foot frontage. I like, maybe one thing I would maybe have a discussion about is maybe 40% is not the right answer. Maybe we need to go down a little more. But other than that, I think we just need to follow our existing zones that we have instead of making these other ones.
well, but to that 40% piece, I mean, if we've passed it with our existing codes, that could be something the city council is like, hey, we want to see the mock-up
Yeah.
of what that looks like with our 40%.
Yeah.
And then they can change it from that point. So I think we start at 40 and see what that looks like, and you know, put that on the developer to take, you know, if we don't like that, then we can go the other direction.
Yeah.
I agree with that. We're almost working backwards against our
it should be
favor.
that
Like,
way.
let's start where we can see what we would
Yeah.
love to see, like as our maximum potential, and work our way backwards. That's a great point.
I just think the city funding, and I think is very important. I think Karen mentioned this. I don't like the CRAs, the TIFs, the PIDs, you name it, whatever it is. I feel like it sets the city up for just problems.
Nick, is that anything that's even going to come before us on that portion?
I don't think so.
I still
mean, we
want
can
to,
still make
I still want to,
recommendations.
I still want to
Now's a
express
great time to
my,
get our opinion.
yeah, I want to
Absolutely.
express my opinion on it. I just feel like if a developer's coming in, they should pay for their infrastructure. I do, however, feel like, I mean, this is a great spot for regional lift station. So whatever's maybe above and beyond what the developer needs, then maybe the city can figure out some way to help fund it, or we do pioneering agreements so that the neighboring parcels, if they come in, they help pay that back to the developer. I just don't feel like it should fall on the city
Yeah.
to help build that at all, whether any roads, nothing.
I would agree.
Yep, I 100%. I'm personally, I'm a big proponent of the pioneering agreement route.
Yeah.
I think it services the opportunity for growth in other areas also. So it not only stimulates this current development, but it'll stimulate the growth around them for people
Yeah.
that want to use the lift station.
Yeah.
It puts the responsibility on and the risk on the developer. Like, I don't think Hooper's in a position to take risks to that nature or to that level, to start throwing money and bonds and other things that ties us up for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to recommend any kind of an agreement around funding, it needs to be more a pioneering agreement that will allow it to happen and benefit us without the risk all falling on our shoulders.
We already mentioned get rid of the flex space, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should get rid of it though.
Huh?
I think we should get rid of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's, I don't, that doesn't fall within any of our zoning recommendations.
No, correct.
So
Yeah,
it's,
it's gone anyway.
well, they can still, yeah, the council can change that if they wish, but. Anything else you guys are seeing in there?
So I just feel like obviously this is a big, long list, and I don't think this would be a good thing to give them a recommendation of approval with this long of a list. Just curious. So this would be whether there's three options, right? Approve, reject, or table, or sorry, what did I say? Deny, sorry. If you do one of the first two, we don't see it again, this DA,
Yeah, under any of them, it's potential that you don't ever see.
even the tabling.
Well, if you tabled it, yeah, but, and I'm not here to.
Yeah,
be
he'd
the
rather see it.
developers. He's asked that we not do that. And I think without advocating for him, the problem that puts him in is his project can't move forward.
You'd have to come back to us.
Have to come back and he's, I think, expressed that he's tried to be patient through this process, but it's now reached the point where they're either going to start putting in a lot more money for it, or they're going to just leave the project. So
It is important to know with that there is code, right? That we could find it and review it, but we're within code, but at some point on a table, you would violate, you would have to have action. Once a rezone application has been made and funds have been paid, you have to make a motion at some point.
Yes.
We can look at the specifics.
Yeah, the only reason I was saying table is because we have all this big old long list. Like, it'd be nice to see this again before it goes to city council, which I think brings up a good point. It'd be awesome to have a joint session to really talk about these.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion. I don't think that with our knowledge and skill level, I don't think we're going to ever fully understand this to that level. That's why we have the city council as a team with us, and we have Nick and staff to kind of support us in it, to help us understand it fully. I think we either going to approve or deny, knowing, I mean, to me, what the developer wants is not necessarily going to move my decision whether he wants us to table it or not. But I don't think there's value in tabling it from our perspective, because whether we see it again, we're never going to fully understand it. We're going to understand what we understand, but let's have a bigger discussion that can then build something that either passes or fails at the city council level.
If we denied, you got all those comments, and that would be passed on to, well, you're here obviously, but to also the city council. I mean, they're here too, but for sure. Okay, so I think I'll make the motion. Any more discussion?
I don't know if you guys wanted to talk about, you talked about allowed uses in a PUD, maybe any allowed uses in a C2, just as it relates to a few of those that I highlight.
Yeah, I think those things you mentioned, I think are great, worth commenting on. If you want to remind us, and by that I mean tell Morgan.
No self-storage. There was all kinds of stuff in there.
There's some,
Self-storage, bars, pubs.
yeah, so in the agreement, the
Parking
developer had put forth in the agreement, auto, truck, recreational vehicle, equipment, storage, bar, establishment. So that's a duplicate. We should be good business equipment, rental and supply, commercial vehicle equipment. So those ones are ones that they'll be agreeable to. It's in their agreement, but the ones in our code that we might inadvertently not realize there's a bar, brew, pub or nightclub, that's one specific in contractor's yard, crematory, hotel or motel, kennel, commercial, off-street parking facility, storage facility, self-service tower or antenna structure.
Wasn't there one in there about a tattoo or?
Oh, I just was curious. I don't think wouldn't it be a use in ours, but there's a lot of buzzwords around it, sexually oriented businesses.
Yeah,
but I
the
didn't know if-
SOBs.
I didn't know what types of restrictions we could place on that or not.
I think you could restrict them.
You get restricting for this
For
development.
this development.
So yeah, those are great. The other thing too, I don't know if we mentioned, we talked about it in the other portion of the agenda, but so we don't want the mixed use, we're moving the commercial up. So I would say I would want the city council strongly discuss having that nice corridor, like pedestrian corridor on between the commercial and the existing homes.
Yeah, I think
With
it's
what it's
important,
doing is-
even throughout the entire development,
Yeah.
yes, on that corridor to buffer the west side, but even the pedestrian connections in the entire development, kind of like we've discussed before in other developments going in the area. I think we want those connections throughout the entire project.
So just to throw this out here, because yeah, look at Blake over there. So approve or deny, we don't see this again. And it moves with our list of recommendations or reasoning.
Well,
If we table it,
If we prove or deny and we never see it again, why are we even voting on it?
well, because we have to take an action one direction or another, but we can also table. And I know that's not what the developer prefers, but it's not all about the developer. It's about us and Hooper as well. So if we table it, we can take more time to review this on our own. Because I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't support this right now because there is so much in there that I don't understand. And I want to understand it. Like I don't necessarily want to deny it and send it to the city council for them to try and work through either. Ideally, I would like to work with the city council, with all of us, and create that list of what we want, what we don't want, what we do agree to and what we don't agree to. And I know this kicks the can down the road a little bit more, but, and I know that's inconvenient for these folks, but it's something we can look at.
I like that idea. That way they could take all these big old laundry list of concerns that we had. They could try to adjust it in the DA, and we can also talk and hopefully have a joint meeting. I think that's a smart and wise decision. And we have two other people here on the planning commission, hopefully too.
Yeah, I would agree that I'm not ready to approve it by any means. There's far too many conditions to place on a conditional approval. So, I mean, to me, it's definitely a denial at this point.
Well, and whether we approve or deny doesn't matter.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's whether we approve, deny, or table. That's the two differences. Because if we table, we get to see it again and we can talk more about it.
Don't you think this, even if we deny, the city council's amenable to including us in discussion?
I think so. I really do.
I do too.
But I don't, I feel like, I almost feel like this gives us approving or denying almost gives us the out, like, well, it's on the city council now. And, to do it, yeah, I mean, they can choose to include us in that. I think they would, but I don't know. It's just something to discuss.
I'm fine. I like the idea. I think it'd be good to have him clean it up a little bit before it gets here. That way we can, I mean, if he cleans it up and and addresses our concerns, maybe we can have a positive recommendation to the city council at that point. And then it's going well, but I feel like it's way too far. And really, like I mentioned in the work meeting, this is really the second time we've talked about it. Maybe three if we count, I guess, last time. Even then, yeah. So I feel like it's gone pretty quick. So I guess I'll make a motion that we table it in hopes that they can address a lot of these comments and then we can have a joint meeting with the city council.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Waite to table. Is there a second? Or discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I probably agree. I'd like some discussion. I guess my thoughts on that aspect are, I think it is probably the more responsible thing for us to do to table it. One thing that you said, just kind of clicked in my brain that I think that our roles require us to have some accountability. And part of that accountability is having a document that we can fully support or deny. If we were to deny it tonight, it's based off of some assumptions that it would change. And so I think as far as we're concerned, wanting to have accountability for our positions and like truly give this the forethought that it requires, I think tabling is the most responsible thing to do.
Blake, any thoughts?
No, I agree with Nate.
I mean, that would,
I'll second.
So, all right, so we have a motion set forth by Commissioner Waite, seconded by Commissioner Denny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Before we move to adjournment, I just want to tell everybody, thank you that's sitting out on those really hard, uncomfortable chairs. I've spent a lot of hours in those too. This is important, and I hope we get this right. And we've received a lot of letters in every direction. There was a lot of good feedback tonight. Please continue that. So the more we hear, the more educated decisions we can try and make and help the city council with this stuff as well. So at this time, I am going to open it up. We have one more item on here for citizen comment. It can be about anything you would like. We cannot take any action on it this evening, but a motion to move into the citizen comment portion. No motion? All right, let's just do it then. If somebody's got something they'd like to say, come on up. Sir, please state your name, and are you a Hooper resident?
I am Dale Fowers, and I am a Hooper City resident. I'm commenting tonight as a concerned citizen. I received the following letter that I'd like to read into the record. This letter is referencing some property that I own in West Hooper. I'm aware that I am not the only landowner in West Hooper that received this letter. So it reads, to the owners of the 18 acres in Hooper. I'm reaching out about your 18.2 acres at 4600 South in Hooper. Hooper has made planning changes that make your ground meaningfully more developable than it used to be. I work with a local home builder who has taken projects from raw ground to finished neighborhoods all over Utah. I noticed the change and wanted to make sure you knew, and to see if you would like to hear what it could mean for you. I have included a snapshot of your property below so you can verify that this is the correct property, and it is the correct property. My question is, why is the developer from Saratoga Springs under the impression that Hooper City's general plan has been changed, allowing for higher density development? I am aware that a committee has been formed to work on changing our general plan, but there have been no public meetings held. No changes have been made. Yet for some reason, this developer seems to think the changes are a done deal. I would like to stress to the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the residents of Hooper City that any changes to our general plan should be done with as much community involvement as possible. All changes should be carefully considered by the residents of Hooper, as they are the ones who will be most affected. My hope is that the minds of those involved in this decision have not already made up their mind. As members of the Planning Commission and City Council, it is important that we never forget whose best interest, we never forget those who our best interest is involved with, those we represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comment this evening? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
motion to adjourn.